Welcome to the Libertarian Counterpoint. I'm Richard Fields. On the program today we have Matt Fleming, Capitol reporter at Cal Watchdog here in Sacramento. John Cameron, the author of Rewire and Rekill and the PLF Pacific Legal Foundation Development Officer. Working tonight on a couple of topics, and the first one I think is really what's got everybody's attention is the Gary Johnson campaign. Actually getting some traction. I'm sure part of that is because the Trumpster and the Hildebeest are getting less traction than perhaps would otherwise be expected. Would you say that, John?
I hadn't heard Hildebeest before, but you're giving a bad name to beasts by attaching
okay,
that.
Then.
I'd say if you look at it, Trump almost seems to be intentionally committing political suicide, and yet, despite that fact, every other poll's got him even with or beating Hillary Clinton, which lets you know that the American public is rather dissatisfied with the status quo. And Gary, the nice thing about Gary Johnson is an awful lot of Americans are libertarians and don't know it.
That's his slogan, by the way. Yeah.
I was getting there.
Yeah, okay.
I was getting there. This is kind of a case of I would say a public health campaign is coming, and the fact that people are actually reaching out to him from the media, even though what is it? You're the expert on this. What's the number? Nearly 80% of people who work in media are liberals, even though they all say they're middle of the road, but when they take the test, they're liberals. They're so dissatisfied that they're kind of willing to let Gary have a little chance to talk. And the other part of it is his second in command is the consummate politician, while still following a moral compass. He's called on occasion, Weld is called both former governors, so they're great administrators. They've actually done a good job in government. None of them have plastered top secret information on a website that a 6-year-old could crack, and so it's pretty cool to see because he's getting major media requests daily. Versus last time he ran was 2012. He couldn't get on any shows.
Yeah, the way Gary says it, he says he's getting 20 major media requests per day. This could go around, whereas 4 years ago he was making 20 calls to get one, and lucky if he was able to land one.
Yeah, and I think that to go back to your point about the media, I don't know what the percentages. I've never heard that, but in just casual conversations, I'd say it's probably pretty high that a lot of reporters lean Democratic, but. I do think it's interesting that the country is so dissatisfied with the two major party candidates that even reporters are starting to reach out to someone like Gary Johnson, and maybe they will with Jill Stein as well. But I don't think their chances have improved for winning. I mean, you look around a electoral map, I don't see anybody winning a whole lot of states, and I mean that's what it comes down to. But the fact that reporters are even willing to talk to them now, I think speaks to maybe a little bit of bias.
I think there is hope, and it's in a little bit of an unorthodox way. It goes back to a 19th century election, which is when you actually have, if Gary Johnson were able to take one or two states and deny both Hillary and Trump the 270 electoral votes, then it would go into the House of Representatives. Once in the House of Representatives, the way it works is the top 5 electoral vote getters, and in this case would be the top 3 probably electoral vote getters, would all be competing for the most state delegations. So each state delegation would vote on who they're going to vote for. So 26 votes wins. And you know that there are more Republican state delegations than there are Democratic state delegations. Yeah. So that pretty well rules out Hillary. You'd think.
Well, we're hoping something rules her out.
And if that happens, looking at the state delegations, would you rather, if you're a state delegation of Republicans, would you rather vote for a 2-term former Republican governor, successful in a blue state, or Trump? And I'm going to guess that a lot of those state delegations are going to, wake up with conviction that, well, you know what, we better vote for the actual Republican, you know, even though he's under the Libertarian label. It could happen. I mean, it's a long shot. The Libertarian
could
Party.
happen.
The Libertarian Party has been a snowball's chance in hell for what, 50 years now, or 40,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. Now it's a snowman's chance in hell, and.
Well, there's certainly an opportunity for you know, greater exposure, and the fact that they're getting this many media requests means that they're being taken seriously.
Well,
which is a
yeah.
big, that in itself is a huge victory.
Yeah, and Johnson is pulling a consistent 8 to 12% in polls, nationwide polls, wherever he's included. He's got a problem being included. A lot of polls do a two-way poll, and then as an afterthought do a three-way poll or a four-way poll, including Jill Stein. But if he's included in the polls from the get-go, he usually ends up 10, 12%. 15% gets him into the debates. He's not far from that, and he's probably got I would say probably maybe 1/3 of the population, of the voting population, actually recognizes his name. So he, you know, is essentially polling 1/3 of the population that knows who he is or knows his name. So
recognizes
yeah.
his name and doesn't go like when they hear it, which is what's happening with the other two candidates.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the negative name recognition. And the nice thing about the libertarian platform, if there is such a thing,
well, there is
that, well, we go back to the fact that if you ask probably, I guess, in 60% of the American populace, you know, what they think about things, and you were to not label it libertarian and ask them the libertarian platform, they'd say, yeah, that sounds good.
Actually,
Yeah,
it's probably about 20%. About 20% are going to agree on both the social issues and the economic issues and the foreign policy issues.
But the thing about it is that if you look at the Democratic platform, you're going to see that same kind of bias. The Democrats have always had the hot button issue to get the majority of the woman's vote, which is the control of the uterus. You know, there are people who vote Republican, although they despise a lot of the platform for one hot button issue. So I think that's happening. That same kind of thing happens. You don't get complete agreement on the Democratic platform from a lot of people, and a lot of people who are even on the dole or working in government. Maybe that's the same thing. Or let's just say the same thing. Are still ardent libertarians, even though they're getting their paycheck from the government. I tell people what I do on the train to work in Sacramento, and 9/10 of the people around me get their paycheck from the government and despise their paymaster and know that they're wasting money and know that it's a horribly run organization and know that someone has to do something. Now, they don't seem to realize that if that happens, that they're going to lose their jobs, but they know they're working for evil, and the only way they get up and go to work every day is they try to do their little bit well, whatever that is. I don't think a lot of these people are evil. They're just, you know, trying to do their job. So I think there's a chance, especially if some of this money starts appearing and the public education campaign takes it from, you know, the platform. A lot of people are libertarians, just don't know it, to explain what it means to be a libertarian. I think if people think there's even that snowman's chance in hell, that they can put a reasonable thinking person in the White House instead of these two lunatics. Because even the Democrats that are going to vote for Hillary don't want to vote for Hillary, but they don't want Trump in.
Yeah.
And a lot of Republicans that are going to vote for Trump don't want to vote for Trump, but they'd rather die than see Hillary.
Yeah,
So
the key is going
you
to
know,
be able to get into the debates, which requires 15% in the polls. Second, the key is going to be whether or not Gary Johnson can raise enough money to do a credible advertising buy. He's getting by right now on free media and doing a pretty good job of it, but he's going to, at some point, he's going to have a large enough campaign war chest so that he can do a targeted campaign in states like New Mexico, Colorado, which is very libertarian in the sense that they've already legalized marijuana and so forth, maybe Washington State, a few other states. A lot of Western states could go, he could actually win if he is able to target them with a large enough war chest.
I think there's a
And
couple
if he
of
does
states
that,
in the Northeast.
Yeah,
that
maybe New
some of
Hampshire.
yeah.
possibly
Maybe.
New Hampshire,
Yeah,
possibly
might make it.
states like Kansas, Nebraska, states like that. He's not going to win California. He's not going to
Yeah.
win New York or some of the deep South states. That's probably not going to happen. But certainly the West and the Midwest and certain New
Northeast.
England states,
Yeah.
he's got a chance of actually doing quite well. And it's going to ultimately depend on whether or not the war chest is there. I'm doing my part. I hope everybody else does as well.
But the unfortunate thing is that money would probably follow a strong debate performance, which by that point it's
Not
kinda late in the
necessarily.
game.
It would be better, obviously, early money is like yeast. I think
Yeah.
that's the Emily's List slogan. But it's true.
Yeah.
But also, if he can do a strong debate appearance and is able to follow that up with a blitz of television and internet and radio and so forth in the last 3 or 4 weeks before the election, he could actually make a huge impact even when the general election. It's possible.
You talked about yeast, and you talked about surviving on free media. Basically, Trump is surviving on free media as well. He's not spending any money, and so he's getting the media now because he's a circus.
And
But-
he'll continue to be a circus because he knows that works.
And if Gary Johnson can find the right hooks,
He's got to be Circus LA.
Well, I don't know that you can out-Trump Trump. I don't think.
well, you
that-
don't, you don't
I
have
don't think
to
you
out,
want to, but
you don't
but
have
what you
to
can
out-Trump
do is you
Trump.
can
You can look like the adult in the room.
look like the adult in the room.
already looks like
in
the
a
only
cheerful
adult in the
and intelligent and credible way.
In
And
a way that
that's-
challenges the status quo
Yeah.
to an
And
extent.
That's last election when he was out of it and he was making some comments on the side. He got kind of, snide and he didn't show his good side. So we got to make sure that whoever's his handlers are, make sure he doesn't get superior, holier than thou, egotistical, you're idiots kind of thing. Because you're seeing that from both these other candidates. You want to see the adult act like an adult in the room. And I think. It's pretty easy to eviscerate the Republicans and the Democrats. So I'm holding out more hope than you do. It could be just because I'm a wake up smiling kind of guy, but
I think it'd be fun to watch. I would enjoy it. I'd enjoy every second of it.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
going to be a fun election regardless.
I wrote a
Or
story about
interesting
libertarians
times.
recently, so
Yeah. Senator Bob Hertzberg has written or has introduced Bill SB 881, which would stop the automatic suspension of driver's licenses for unpaid traffic fines. That sounds kind of good to me, actually.
yeah. As someone who's maybe had his license suspended 1 or 2 times for unpaid fines, it sounds great to me too. And I think that the point that they're trying to make, he's teamed up with the ACLU and other civil rights groups. The point that they're trying to make is not only is there a sort of a due process issue where this extra punitive measure is taken against people, but it sort of traps people in this cycle of poverty. I mean, you can look at statistics and see that this adversely affects impoverished communities, and many people rely on their ability to drive to get to work. And if that's taken away, that hurts their ability to drive, hurts their ability to get to work, hurts their ability to make money, which hurts their ability to pay the fines, and it just sort of starts this cycle. So that's they're making, and it seems like it's coming. It's kind of coursing along the legislature, and the ACLU's been pressuring certain county courts to sort of stop the practice, and they've gotten a few of them to knock it off.
Okay, now this is State Senate introduction. What's the chance of that bill actually making headway and getting passed, and then once passed, being signed by Governor Brown?
Governor Brown did not take a position on it so far. It has passed the Senate. It is working its way through the Assembly. Anything can happen, but it is moving along. It's not just a great idea that somebody put on paper.
It's actually, it's an actual real bill.
It's an actual real bill.
And it's mostly Democrat support, or is it getting some Republican bipartisan support?
It's getting a little bit of bipartisan support, but it's, well, like anything in the legislature, it's carried by Democrats. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's not solely along party lines.
Okay, so a possibility that one of the impediments to being able to hold a job and earn a living, that of not having a driver's license, might be eased a bit if this goes through. That's a good thing. The Federal Communications Commission has said that government is exempt from the regulations on robocalls that all businesses and everybody else has to obey. Is there a good reason for exempting our friendly congressman from making robocalls?
I don't. Did you want to take this one?
I read about it a little bit, and it just, there might be a good reason. I don't know, but it does. I think it just adds to the narrative that, particularly with the email stuff that happened this week with Hillary Clinton and the FBI, I think it just speaks to this idea that the government can get away with things that, the government is held to a different standard than your average citizen. So, I mean, whether there's a good reason or not, there may totally be. I didn't see one. I know that it was allowing, members of Congress to make robocalls to inform people of, town halls or things of that nature. And that's great if they can spread the message. It just seems like, I don't know, two standards.
And I think the do not call list, as it was written, my understanding is that it exempted government organizations and nonprofits from. You can have your name on a do not call list, and you can still be called by a politician, and you can still be called by a nonprofit. And I would think that would be wouldn't that be a First Amendment issue? I'm thinking, Richard, if you really look at it, that you remove the ability to communicate from one group and hold that ability.
Well, reserve it for the government, reserve it for our
and-
esteemed public servants, and
for
take it away from
nonprofits, and for nonprofits.
and
So-
take it away from business, small business, let's say, and not as well as big business. I think there's a First
I think
Amendment
somebody
issue there.
could go after it.
I'm not sure anybody has, though.
I would much rather have anybody call me and leave a message on my machine. I'd rather have kind of.
I'd rather have a sighting company call and leave a message on my machine, or an air conditioning free service company call and leave a message on my machine than Dianne Feinstein or Barbara Boxer, personally.
And I would take it one step further. I would rather have people start making Nigerian prince scam calls that I get as emails now to me than hear a
Nancy
politician.
Pelosi called me, yeah.
And I don't care who that politician is. And I think somebody should go after this on First Amendment.
Maybe somebody will. Who knows?
Maybe if any lawyers, or of the three people that are watching the show,
Yeah.
if one of you is a lawyer and knows anything about First Amendment law, this is a slam dunk. But I disgust me that I think we're going to talk probably vehemently and at length about Hillary's unnatural act being performed on her by the FBI. But it galls me that Congress, for example, doesn't have to obey any of the laws that govern you or I if we ran a business. The sexual harassment stuff, the age, the hours worked, they're exempt, and that speaks to me.
They're exempt from disclosure laws.
It speaks to me of the medieval times when the kings and queens and princes and dukes were supposedly had their mandate from God and could do whatever they wanted to the serfs, which is us. And I want to see that end. It just disgusts me that there are two different standards. And we're seeing it, the Clinton royal family getting away with crazy stuff again. But anyway, it annoys the heck out of me, and I think the FCC has opened themselves up to a nice First Amendment lawsuit.
In November, we have a ballot initiative in California. It's calling for A tax increase on tobacco, big surprise there. But what I found, this is a significant increase. I think from $2 to $2.83, or from 83 cents to $2.83
Yeah.
per pack or something like that. Significant increase in the tax on tobacco and tobacco products. But what was really interesting is it specifically includes not only tobacco, but vaping. Why in the world is the political and health nanny establishment so dead set on stopping the vaping industry in its tracks when it is probably 20 times as safe from a health standpoint as smoking?
Well,
It pays.
it pays. Follow the money. There's something in the problem with tobacco is, yes, nicotine is very addictive, as former smokers
Sure.
can attest to, and it somehow that little molecule manages to get into your mind and do things to it that are pretty scary when you find yourself driving into a place to buy tobacco after you quit, not even knowing you're doing it until you're putting that cigarette in your mouth. I think we've all experienced that.
Sure.
But all the studies indicate that the harm is caused by, unless you stuff your cheek full of 3 ounces of Red Man or something, and even then, the harm is caused by the smoke. And nicotine, addictive, yes. How harmful, who knows? But it's the tobacco that
It's the tars that kill you, not the nicotine.
and that is burned and sucked into the lungs. So there's a product that they use in Sweden called snus, which is basically like very, very low-level chewing tobacco, and it's flavored, it's licorice or whatever. And studies have shown that people are very successful in giving up sucking cancer-causing, emphysema-causing, COPD-causing smoke into their lungs by having a near infinitesimal amount of tobacco in their gum. But it's having a tough time getting legalized anywhere because the governments all realize, and they will never say this, that if people quit buying tobacco that's 87% tax, then that tax revenue is going to go away. So this is really hypocrisy at its highest. And as a libertarian, if somebody wants to shoot peanut butter into their veins or eat dirt or smoke street tar, I do not care. As long as they're not coming up to me and making me pay for their habit, I don't care. But this is just crazy hypocrisy at its highest, and you just said it pays. Right?
Yeah, it just seems like a money grab to me. I mean, I know a lot of the revenue would go to stopping smoking campaigns and to further this idea that smoking is bad. And smoking, I mean, smoked for a long time, smoking is bad. There's no doubt about it. But for every anecdote, I think it was Tony Atkins, the former speaker, was talking about her grandmother or somebody telling an anecdote of somebody she loved, a loved one dying of lung cancer or emphysema or something, something like that. And while that's a tragic story, no one ever tells the story of all the people that actually like smoking, that now just have to deal with this all the time. And there are plenty of people that just like smoking. It just seems to be the boogeyman that they've,
You almost
the well-paying
admire
boogeyman.
smokers nowadays. I mean, I don't, but and then you
They
look
got to
at,
deal with shunning in a way we didn't have to.
And
I'm not a smoker. I maybe smoked. There was a time maybe when I smoked a cigarette a day. I never really had the urge to smoke more than that. Don't really particularly understand why smoking has any allure at all. It seems kind of silly to me. But I do like to have a whiskey every once in a while. And I had a whiskey at a local a local watering hole here in Sacramento not too long ago that it was whiskey with bacon in it. And as I understand it, in Oklahoma City and even in California, something called infused liquor is a crime. There's a bar in Oklahoma City called The Pump. The manager of the bar was put in jail for 3 days for putting bacon in a vodka bottle in order to infuse the vodka with bacon flavor. Now, why in the world would any state make that a crime? And I guess it's a crime in California as well.
Well, I know there's a
Why
lot-
would they make it a crime? And if it is a crime, why in the world would anybody waste time enforcing a dumbass law like that?
Yeah, from what I understand about the Oklahoma, I don't know anything about it in California, but from what I understand about the Oklahoma City law, it's like a holdover law from a long time ago, maybe like Prohibition times, or I guess after Prohibition, where people weren't, because the way alcohol is taxed, people weren't allowed to like go in and kind of mess around with it, maybe water it down, and try to stretch out their, because it would prohibit water and all that other stuff in it too. But in reading that, I don't know why a barkeep, it does seem crazy that someone would get arrested for it, but at the same time, I don't know why a barkeep wouldn't. I think once you put it in a different container, it's fine. So I don't know why they wouldn't just hold it in a different container. I mean, it's stupid to begin with.
I
But
have an idea. It was a vegan. It was a vegan cop,
enforcer. Yeah.
a vegan alcoholic cop that put him in jail.
yeah,
Well,
Because there
speaking,
is no, I
speaking
mean,
of,
most stuff that's illegal, there's no freaking reason for it to be illegal. And the things that are legal, like, people lying and exposing top secrets to the world out of stupidity.
well, let's talk about another thing that's illegal, at least in New York. In New York, it's illegal to rent your apartment for less than 30 days. And not only that, but it's illegal to the tune of $1,000 to a $7,500 fine to advertise your apartment for rent for less than 30 days, a la Airbnb. To me, well, it looks to me like that you talk about a violation of the First Amendment, a clear violation of the First Amendment. Forget about the Commerce Clause.
So let me make sure I understand the law. So less than 30 days at a stretch, or less
Well, no,
than
less
30
than 30 days at a stretch,
total?
yes. Total. So in other words, short-term rental. This is basically crony capitalism at
Yeah.
its worst.
It seems
It's
like a concession to
it's
hotels
protecting
and-
Hilton and Holiday Inn and the hotel industry from competition from Airbnb and VRBO and the rest of the internet applications. It's pure protectionism of the established hotel industry. It's making it impossible for people who want to make a little extra money
Yeah.
by renting out the side room or their the granny flat or whatever. It's making it impossible for them to make money doing so, leaving a lot of real estate sitting empty, presumably, and accomplishing nothing other than protection for the established hoteliers. I think it's absolutely, not only is the law against short-term rentals wrong on Commerce Clause reasons, but the law prohibiting advertising is wrong on First Amendment grounds.
absolutely. And as someone who uses Airbnb every time I stay anywhere, it's just crazy. And when you think about it, New York City is either the most expensive real estate in the country or second most. I mean, it's
Yeah.
up there with San Francisco.
Sure.
It just seems crazy that people don't have the ability to make that extra income, or this is like an easy way to alleviate that pressure that the government is trying to get in the way of.
That's the show. We'll see you again next week, same time, same place on Libertarian Counterpoint at 8 p.m. Thursday, noon on Friday, and 4 a.m. on Saturday on accesssacramento.org, on Channel 17 in Sacramento, on cable channels elsewhere, and on YouTube. So check it out. Tell your friends. We'll see you.